Are we live, Darby?
We are live.
All right. Welcome, everyone. Man, I love doing these live streams to our audience. I don't know if you're hopping in today from the book patch, or maybe you're one of our Jarvis Insider, Jarvis Underground members, but welcome. Say hello in the chat. Let me hear, where is everyone coming from today?
Yeah, great to see you guys. Say hey in the chat. Let us know where you're tuning in from at. And couple quick housekeeping items before we dive in here. Introduce Rachelle. We are going to be running our last and final 7-day book challenge as Zachariah and I are hosting on starting November 15th. We've been running them each and every month of this year. And so if you've had a book in your head, you've been on the fence about getting it out, and you're looking for that last little bit of motivation and some help along the way in terms of coaching and just Jarvis support, feel free to reach out to us. Go to jarvisunderground.com, hit me up at the chat, and we'll talk about getting your book out of your head, getting it taken care of.
You guys, this can be the last chance for you to have a book in your hand, your own book written for your own ideal audience, your own ideal customer, in your hand before the new year. So you can go into the new year with a book launch, and get ready to start building your business for 2022. So let's we had a comment. Talk to me about that. Darby, I don't know. Do you want to chat about that?
I want to dive into this live, because everything we do with books is, getting us on stage, and TEDx is somewhere I want to be, I know, in the near future. So I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm super excited to have Rachelle on. One of the biggest things that we see is, especially with someone wanting to write a book, is what comes after, right? We talk about that all the time. Inside of our challenges, what are you writing the book for? Is it for your coaching business? Is it for, maybe you have this really amazing story that you want to share with the world, and your dream is to be on a TEDx stage? Well, that's why we brought my friend here, Rachelle Babler, on to give us the ins and outs of TED and TEDx, and what the difference between them two is. And so if your dream is to be on a TED stage one day, this is absolutely the place to start. So Rachelle is a SoCal girl coming from San Diego, and she quit her career of 20 years to pursue her why. And during the pandemic, she realized her why is to empower people to express themselves with their stories. It's like what we do and what I love to do, help people share powerful stories that belong to them. And so hers is so that they can heal, inspire, and give others permission to do the same. So Rachelle, it is such an honor to have you on today. I'm super excited.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. So just give us the rundown. What was your why and your switch? I'd love to hear it from your words.
So I have kind of an eclectic background. After high school, I went to college and I became a paramedic. And I was a paramedic for 6 years in San Diego, working, driving code 3 around the streets of San Diego, helping people with their emergencies. And the contract negotiations were coming up, and a lot of us were going to lose our jobs. So many of us went back to school. I took a forensics course, got hooked, and I was in forensics for almost 20 years, working for a local law enforcement agency in their lab, analyzing evidence. And I did a lot of research, taught all over the country. It was amazing. But in my mid 40s, my intuition got really loud, and it was like, you have more work to do, but not in this area. And I quit my job cold turkey, gave 2 weeks notice. I had no idea what I was going to do. Everybody thought I was having my midlife crisis. And I was like, no, this is my midlife awakening. And I became an entrepreneur, and I haven't looked back since. It's been the best decision I've ever made. And since I spoke a lot on the forensic platform, I loved supporting speakers and speaking. And I just kind of gravitated towards supporting speakers with outreach, connecting them to events, conferences to speak at. And then that kind of turned into podcasts. And then it also through ALA, which I know you know what that is, Zachariah. Like I met a guy in my ALA group who worked for a company who supported clients with their idea for the TEDx stage. And I eventually got hired with them, and I learned everything from him. He's been in the industry for about 13 years behind the scenes and as an ideation coach for TEDx. And so that's primarily what I do right now, is helping clients with their idea for the TEDx stage. So it's super fun, and I'm excited to go through like all the moving parts and then share my recent experience as well.
That's so cool. And just amazing. So, one of the big things I'm always hearing is TED versus TEDx. Can you kind of give us the rundown of what each one is?
Yeah. So TED is the global parent company, and TED stands for technology, education design, or entertainment design. Depends on who you talk to. And it was designed for thought leadership and for people that would create change. So as you guys are probably aware, the slogan for TED is the idea worth spreading. Mm-hmm. And so TED, that was started, I think, conceived around 1984. And every year they have a global conference. So they have TED, they have TED Med, which is like health and wellness. They have TED Women, and TED Ed, and TED Youth. And those are global conferences, but those are invite only. So there are people really that are at the top of their kind of niche or their field, and they get invited, and it's an event that they have once a year. So about 10, 15 years ago, TED wanted to expand the opportunity to have other people share that TED experience. So they created TEDx, which the X stands for independently organized events. Mm-hmm. So if you've seen TEDx, you'll see TEDx San Diego. There's TEDx UCSD here in San Diego. There's TEDx SDSU. And then there's like a TEDx Youth down in Chula Vista in the South Bay down here. And so different cities have TEDx events, and those events are independently organized. Anybody can apply for a license through TED for 1 year to host a TEDx event. And I believe there's like over 1,400 in the US, and then globally there's like over 2,500 events. So wow. You really have the opportunity now to apply to these TEDx events to get accepted to one of them to do your TEDx talk. So the difference, like if you're applying for an event, it's going to be a TEDx event versus a TED, which is the global parent company that has like their major, conference every year, or their event once a year. So it's really, it's really great that they created the TEDx so that people can, have the opportunity. Because as we know, and I'm going to use Brene Brown because everybody knows Brene Brown, but she did her TEDx first TED Talk, TEDx Houston, and that went global, that went viral. And all of a sudden everybody knew about Brene, shame, vulnerability. And, eventually she was asked to do a TED Talk. I think she's done 3, 2 TEDx and then 1 TED Talk. So yeah, that's the difference between the two.
Amazing. And so other than Brene Brown, what have you seen, like what sorts of TED Talks do you see? Are they all supporting? Are they all like people that are supporting their business with it, or kind of what sort of applicants are you seeing?
So the TEDx stage is not to promote your business. It is really for the idea worth spreading that's going to help others take action, feel differently about something, or have a different, like perhaps perception on something that was maybe around a stigma or something like that. So TEDx is really it's not for promotion. TED frowns on that. It's really about what idea do you have that you can get others to take action. You can get others to, look at something differently and to, create human impact.
Okay. And are you seeing a lot of people come in like fresh off the streets, or do a lot of people have like a background in speaking?
Yeah, so there's several clients we've had that have had 0 speaking experience, none at all. And the first time they ever spoke was on the TEDx stage. So there's this fallacy or there's myth that you have to be a professional speaker or you need to have speaking experience to actually be on the TEDx stage, and that's not true. Many of the events will, when you go through the application process, they'll ask you if you have speaking experience, and it's absolutely fine to say, I have none, zero. The big thing is that you have an idea and that you're coachable and that you make the commitment to do what you need to do to get on the stage. Because once you do get accepted to talk, it's a big commitment.
Yeah, what does that process look like?
So the process looks like, so the first thing you want to do is get clear on your idea. So, what is your idea for the stage? Because everybody's got stories. We all have stories, great stories, but a story isn't really, what the TEDx stage is for. It's really like, what is your idea? And a lot of times when we go through our ideation session with clients, the idea is rooted through your storylines. So we go through the stories and we get your stories, but the idea comes from like those stories. And so you get really clear on your idea and then you start applying. If you go to TED.com, you can see all the TEDx events and you can see all the ones like I started in California because this is where I live in California. And I just looked at the ones that were open and I just started applying. Many of the TEDx events will have a theme. So you obviously don't want to apply to a theme that doesn't relate to your idea. You want to apply to the ones that relate to your idea. And then once you start applying, you just apply until you hear from somebody. And sometimes you'll get an email saying you've made it to the second round, and then they do interviews with you. Some, like for mine, it was, you're accepted to do your talk. And then as you go through the process, when you do land a talk, then, we had like a timeline. I had 7 months to get ready for my talk. Some people don't have that much time. Some people have longer. Everything is totally different because all these events are independently organized by different people. So that's the one thing. It's like not a cookie cutter, like it's one thing doesn't fit all, like they're all very different. So for my particular TEDx, we got a timeline of things that, milestones that we had to hit. So my 2-minute idea that I had to share to like apply to these events now became 4 to 6 minutes, and then it became 12 minutes. So when you actually land a talk, they will tell you how much time you have. So TEDx actually looked at the neuroscience and strategy for how long is a talk enough for a speaker to flesh out an idea, but short enough that a listener can digest it. So that's why you'll see TED Talks and TEDx Talks are 18 minutes or less. So when you land a talk, they will tell you how much time you have. It could be 5 minutes. It could be 8 minutes. It could be 15 minutes, or it could be 18. Mine was 12 minutes. So I had 12 minutes. So a lot of times we share with our clients, don't write out your talk until you actually land it and you know how much time you have. Because if you wrote out an 18-minute talk, now you have to condense it down to 6. It makes it really difficult. So there's a framework that we use to help people with the structure of their talk. And it's just really having that in place. And then once you land a talk, you know how much time you have.
And then they tell you right away. They tell you, right, how much time you have. That's so interesting.
Yeah. So once you get accepted and they've picked all their speakers, then that's when we were told like how much time we had. And then from there, again, it's the milestones that you need to hit before you actually make it to the stage. So, we needed to keep expanding on our talk we had a private Facebook group. We shared it with each other. And then when we got to this, to the event, we had a speaker's dinner on a Friday night. The event was on a Saturday afternoon, and we got there like around 10, and we did like sound check. They told us like where to stand, where the green room was, like where we wait, where we sweat it out. And, before we get on. And then once you're done with your talk, you could, watch. I asked to go first at mine because I wanted to get it done and I wanted to be able to enjoy everybody else's talk. So I went first.
That would be me, right?
Yeah. And then after that is you're done, and the event coordinator gets a private, like, secure link to upload each speaker's videos for TED to view. And TED views those, they approve them. And then once they approve them, they go live. They don't tell you when it goes live. You have to just keep checking.
Okay.
Yeah. So mine's in the process of post-production edits, and then upload, and then TED does their thing, and then I'll find out, once it's uploaded, then you just start checking.
Yeah. So what was your talk? Tell everyone what your talk was on.
So my talk was on advocating through music, and my sister unfortunately passed away from colon cancer at the age of 48, and I'm a musician, as you can see my guitars, and it's something I love to do. And I wrote a song the day after she passed away, and it was my interpretation of her cancer journey. And last year during the pandemic, I was trying to decide like what ways I wanted to continue her legacy. And I ended up creating a lyric video out of that song and incorporating colon cancer statistics and facts. And I just started sharing that with like a bunch of colon cancer organizations to share her story, to get people to, a lot of people skip their colonoscopies. They just don't want to do them. They're feeling good, but colorectal cancer is, a lot of times you don't feel any symptoms until it's in the later stages. So I wanted to bring awareness to her story to help others, see how important they are to get screened. Prevention is key for beating that disease. And so my idea was really on how to advocate through music in a different way.
Wow. What a powerful talk.
Yeah, I actually played my guitar and sang a little part of her song in the very beginning. So
how is that? Is getting on? Have you done any like performing in front of people?
Yeah, so I have a band and we play at local dive bars here in San Diego. And so I've performed before, but the TEDx stage is so different because it is, if you've done keynote speaking or speaking before, the TEDx, your talk is such a condensed version of your idea, and stories like in a, very small, and you have to memorize it. There's no teleprompters or anything. So you got to memorize your talk. That's another thing. And so it's very different. So it was one of the most challenging things I've done.
You mentioned that they don't give you the time that you're going to be allotted, right, until after you apply and get through the process?
Yeah. So once you get accepted at a talk and they've accepted all their speakers, that's usually when they'll tell you like how long your talk is.
Is that just for like scheduling and the purpose of like running the event, or?
It's different for all events because it depends on how many speakers they have. Like if you have a lot of speakers, then your time might be shorter.
Yeah.
So we had 16 speakers. So our event was from 1 to 5. I believe most people had around 8 to 12 minutes for their talk. And we had 16 speakers do their talk that afternoon.
Cool. Makes sense. So I guess the thing, a follow-up question to that is like, you don't know your time yet, but you mentioned a framework that it kind of follows into. So could you maybe like elaborate a little bit on what that framework is, and like what's the thought process that you need to be thinking of in terms of these talks, that whether it's 18 minutes or 2 minutes? Like,
yeah, definitely. The thing about, a TEDx talk is that you're taking a condensed version of your entire life kind of and squishing it down into a time frame to really make your impact with your talk. So the framework of, my talk really was, it was rooted a lot in my stories, the story of my sister, how she got diagnosed with cancer, and then how my idea evolved, which was I wrote that song, I took it and I used it to share and bring awareness to colon cancer. And, what could this do for others? So, TEDx is based in story and rooted in idea. And it really depends on what your talk's about too. It's different for everybody, like what your idea is and how you're going to frame that. But, brevity is one of the biggest things that you can have with, making sure that every piece of your talk is going to make an impact in some way because it's such a short, condensed version.
What? Yeah, I'd love to chat about like coming up with the idea for a TED Talk. I mean, what and maybe how it relates to us in books is, and what we teach people when writing a book is, you're the guide, right, and your reader is the hero to the story. Is that similar to TED? And then also we try to we teach our students to like take their reader on a journey, right? So there's a specific, right, who that person is when they start reading and who they are when they finish, or a specific problem that is solved for them in their life when they finish. And I'm interested to see if that relates at all.
Well, again, I think I mentioned earlier, like how do you know if your stuff is good for the TEDx stage? And it's really like, is it a story or is it an idea? And stories make for great content. They can inspire others and, elicit emotion. But that idea is something that's going to create like a theory of change. And that goes beyond the story. So when we go through our sessions with our clients, it's really important to go through the backstories and like everything from where they were as a child till now, because a lot of their idea will come through that. And it's a process that we go through, and we really don't know where it's going to go sometimes. And usually at the very end, our clients will be like, I had no idea that would be my idea. And it's really cool because, your stories really are kind of like the backbone of your idea, because your experiences are like no other. So, some people will say, oh, I want to do TEDx talk, but this idea, or, this type of talk has been talked about so much, like mindfulness, say, or, whatever it might be, but your experiences are so different than anybody else's. So that's why it's important to go through all those experiences and see how we can, come up with that idea for the TEDx stage. Because again, it's about, making a big impact on people to get them to think differently, take action, and, make them feel a certain way.
Can you give us some examples of maybe some of the more powerful ones you've worked on, and kind of that, maybe not use names specifically if you can or can't, but I'd love to hear.
I can share some clients that we had in the past that I didn't particularly work with, but were in the company. There's quite a few that had done some talks that, like one had done one on intermittent fasting. And she was intermittent fasting's been kind of like a big thing the last 5 years of fasting. And her talk went viral, and I believe she has like over 7 million views right now. And, as a result of her talk, she was offered to do, certain things with certain companies. And, it really can change someone's life overnight if it does go viral, and can make a big impact on others, like as far as the messaging, like as I mentioned before, Brene Brown's, like we all look at shame and vulnerability very different because of her talk.
That's amazing. So you work with people, you help them with the application process, then they get selected. I'm trying to think of do most of the TEDx stages, are they hundreds or thousands of people watching? How is it selected from like TEDx to then promote it on the TED YouTube channel?
So when you, right now, because of COVID, TED is limiting the audience to 100 people. So when I did my TEDx event, I believe they had sold 100 tickets, but I would say there was probably 50 to 60 people at the most that I saw there. But your audience is not the people sitting watching you. Your audience are the people in the camera, because your TED Talk and your TEDx talk is going to be a digital thing. So really, you're speaking to the people that are going to be watching it. So I mean, that's as far as I know right now because of COVID, that it's very limited. And then there's also some TEDx events that aren't doing live, they're doing virtual. So if it's virtual, then you're going to be setting up your own place to do your TED Talk. I'm really glad I did mine live. I wanted to be on stage. I wanted to like have that whole experience. So I'm glad that, the one I went to was live, but it's not to say that you can't do a virtual. But I do know, like, from talking to some people, that the spirit of TED really is like, being on stage and doing your talk. So, they're really trying to do what they can to make those talks live.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what is the process if someone wants to work with you guys? If you have questions, this is just to the audience, please post them in, and I'd love to hear other people's insights or takeaways and questions too. But if someone's interested, how long does it typically take from start to finish with you?
So when we first start, what we do is we have our ideation session, which is a 90-minute session, and we do a deep dive into your stories, everything, get clear on your idea. And from that, we take all that content and we put it into an application. So basically, you're having a template of questions that are commonly asked for TEDx events, and you can take that information and then put it into all the applications that you do for TEDx. And that process probably takes for us to like do the messaging about 3 weeks. We could be done with your application. And then from there, a lot of TEDx events will ask you, send us a 1 or like 2 minute video on your idea. So you have to then like squish everything back down even a little bit more, and you do a video and you share with them what your idea is in a very short time, because they're looking at hundreds of applications. So they want to know, like, what's your idea? And so we'll coach our clients on the script for that. We'll review their videos. And then once they're done with those videos, they can start applying. So again, we have some people we can refer to for application support. And then once they land a talk, then the guy I work with, Tucker, who is behind the scenes for TEDx San Diego, taught me everything. He is a coach and can help with the framework of the talk.
Okay.
And that, again, it depends on, I think I applied to mine that I was accepted at, and it took a couple months to get accepted for that one. There's a lot of times we don't know when they're going to accept speakers. They will usually give you an email and say, we're in the process of reviewing and we'll know by July or something. And then you'll at least know, and you keep track of everything on a spreadsheet. And but there also have been clients of ours who've gotten accepted to multiple talks. So multiple events have wanted them to speak. And one thing that you have to know is if you get accepted to multiple, you have to do a different talk at each one. You can't do the same talk twice.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So then you come up with another idea, or you say no and you decline and you just pick one. So it's totally up to you. I had a client I worked with, and she got accepted to 3 TED Talks in 3 months. So she did one each month. And the one thing is that when you do a TEDx, your social proof just like takes it to the next level. So, when you're wanting to get, become a paid speaker or get on podcasts or things like that, just having that I'm a TEDx speaker really like puts you,
takes you to the next level.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know that there's a couple TEDx talks in us, Darby, that we gotta get moving on it.
Gotta get those ideas down. Quick question from the crowd: do these talks require and applications require any kind of fees to apply to them? If someone were to just go and do this on their own?
No, there's no fee at all to apply. You have to anticipate that you're going to pay for everything. When you go do a TEDx, some events, if they, I think, raise enough money, may give you a travel stipend, but just plan that you don't get paid for them and you are going to pay for all your expenses, but there's no application fee to actually apply to these events.
So is there, do like seasoned speakers get paid for coming on TEDx stages? No.
No one gets paid, not even on TED.
Oh, okay.
If you get asked to do TED, you're going to be like, it's a global platform, and to be asked to, be invited to do a TED Talk, it's, you would do it for I don't think anybody would turn that down.
I know I wouldn't. A great question from Patrick. What does it take to work with you and Rachelle and your team?
So you can go to my website, www.rachellebabler.com, and you can contact us there, and we can set up what's called a clarity call to see if the TEDx stage is a good fit for you. And we can go through some stuff and just see what it is your ideas are, what are some of your stories, and then we can, from there, you can decide whether, we'll kind of guide you and make our suggestions, but then you can decide whether you want to go through the ideation process, and, we'll create, again, the messaging for your application, and then help you just get on your way to get it, to make it towards the TEDx stage. So
that's so cool. And I think Patrick is, Jarvis, if I'm not mistaken, is coming on to our next challenge as well.
I think so.
Yeah, I think so. Look forward to having you, Patrick. And that's a good segue. If you guys are to this, touch on again, November is our last challenge that we'll be doing for the year to get your book done. So if that's something you want to have a book done by the end of the year to start off 2022 right, make sure you join us at writingwithjarvis.com. And then, if you're interested in working with Rachelle, Darby, do you have any more questions?
Yeah, a couple, because we're mentioning the TED stage being virtual, right? I think I would get a lot more of an adrenaline rush by being on a stage at a TEDx talk. But, given the state of things and the situation, everyone's had to make the pivot to okay, how do I now present myself on Zoom? Do I need to upgrade my camera? How does my background look? Any tips for preparation in advance? Even if you never were to get on a TEDx stage, what are some just really fundamental basics that anyone that's a speaker in this kind of state is just a good to know?
I would say make sure you have really good lighting. Lighting can be an issue when people are doing virtual talks and stuff, they're too dark, you can't see their face. And a lot of, your talk comes through your expressions of your face and how you're moving. So always have a good microphone and a good, good quality Wi-Fi system so that things don't get broken up and you go in and out. I know that the ones that have gone virtual, I think they give them some instructions on things that they should probably have in place to make sure that their virtual talk is, good.
Cool.
How many applications does someone need to put in before they end up hearing back? And are they 100, 200, 300?
So when we work with clients, what our job is to position them in front of an organizer. So we're, really positioning them so that out of hundreds of applications, they're going to want to look into this one a little bit more. And that's the great thing I've learned about Tucker and him working behind the scenes. He's reviewed thousands of applications for the TEDx stage. And so we're really positioning you for success, to get accepted to one of the stages that you apply to. When I worked at the last company, the average application amount that we saw for somebody to get accepted was 80. But some people got accepted within 10 applications, some 50, I think I applied to almost 40 before mine got accepted. So it really depends. But again, if your idea is clear and it stands out, then you're probably going to, stand out a little bit more than some other people that don't really know, they got to make sure that their idea is really clear and what idea is it that they have. Because that's what TEDx is, it's really about the idea. It's not about the stories so much. It is part of the stories, but it's really about the idea.
Yeah. And so someone comes to you with that idea and you're coaching them through it, and if they have a terrible idea, are you telling them it's bad? I'm so interested to know, what is it if I came to you with just the worst idea? How do you kind of lead me to water?
Why don't you let's see some of your ideas, Zachariah?
Yeah. So what we really do is we dive deep, and then we dive deeper and deeper and deeper, because I think everybody has an idea based, again, on the through line of their stories. They have some sort of thing that they've done in their life, or they've recognized, or something that they can share to help others. So, it's really like going through that ideation session and seeing, like, let's look at the big picture and see which way we can go. Now, sometimes we'll have clients and they have like 3 or 4 ideas. And we're like, wow, you could talk about this, you could talk about this, but like, what is the top one, the one that you're so passionate about that you want to share to create the biggest impact? And then if they get picked to multiple talks, then they can talk about these other ones as well. And if someone gets, picked on multiple, then, we can, and they want to do more than one talk, then we can help them with a different idea that they might, have. So.
Gosh, that's amazing. And then inside of that talk, are you allowed to have slides, show video? Is it pretty open to what you can actually do once you're on stage?
Yeah, you can do slides. The slides can be a distraction. I think sometimes if you use too many. So we were told that if you do use a slide, make sure it's something that is really going to be useful for your audience. If it's not, then don't use it. So I had 2 slides for my entire talk. I had one picture in the beginning, and then I had the video of the lyric video that I did playing in the background when I was talking about it, just so people could get a visual of what it was like. And that was it. Some people didn't use any slides. Some people used a handful of slides. But that's part where when you do get accepted to talk, they're going to coach you on like what their suggestions are as well. So we had coaches for ours, and they would give us like what things, suggestions on what to wear, what not to wear. It's that shaggy red carpet, the dot. And so, for women, like heels, you got to be careful. You don't want your heel get stuck in the carpet. They tell you to bring 2, for us, it was like 2 colors. One color might look better on stage than the other. You might spill something, so you want to have a backup plan just in case. So things like that. So we got coached on like those things throughout that time frame until we actually made it to the stage.
Wow, there's so many things that you don't think to even know. That's really handy.
Just going through the process would be a transformational, and just itself by like learning through everything here. I mean, even if you were just to practice preparing for a TED Talk, I imagine it would have a lot of positive effects for things outside of just the status that you get, showing up on stage.
Yeah. And I talked to people who'd done TEDx talks and asked them, like, what did you learn, or what would you have done differently? And, one of my good friends, he's done a couple TEDx talks. And he's like, when you go out and you walk and you get on that red dot, he goes, just stop for a minute and pause and just ground before you start talking. And, I did that. And it was really like something that just kind of set the tone for me when I started my talk. And then somebody else had suggested, go first. You're going to want to go first and get it done with. And so I asked to go first, and I'm glad I did, because then I could enjoy the rest of the time. So, there's little things like that. You talk to people who've done it and like what worked for them, what didn't work for them. Preparation too. And then the commitment. It's a big commitment to do a talk. And, if you don't hit those milestones and aren't doing the work, an event coordinator can say, you're not going to do it. So, you have to be committed to that process and show up and do the work and, be ready for it.
And can you, maybe I missed it, what are some of the milestones in there from once you get accepted? You said there's a couple of interviews.
So we didn't have interviews for ours. Some events do, and they're trying to narrow down the speakers. So maybe they've picked like 30. Now they need to narrow it down to 15. So they may have interviews and actually interview. I think some people at my event were interviewed. I'm sorry, your question?
Just some of the milestones that they go through.
Oh, yeah. So we expanded on our talk. So it went from what's your 2-minute idea to a 4 to 6 minute talk, and then to a 12-minute talk. So we really started building and working on the framework of it, getting feedback, making adjustments. And then there comes a time where there's no more adjustments and you got to start memorizing it. And that was probably like one of the biggest things for me is I would do the talk and I'd want to tweak this. And I'd want to tweak that. And then I change this. And it's like at some point you have to just stop and just start memorizing it and be done with it, because you could always change it, right? Like just like your book, like when you're writing a book, I tweak that or tweak that. At some point you have to be okay with what you have and just trust it and go with it. So
yeah, I was just going to say that we tell our students, stop editing, stop, just get it fucking, excuse me, because like, get it done.
Same thing. At one point, the coach came on our Facebook group and he's like, okay, this is the time. No more edits. You are done. Like this is, you need from here on out, it's memorizing the talk. And I literally had my talk on autopilot for probably about 2 weeks after it was done. Like it was just because I had said it so many times, like over and over and over.
Wow. What makes a good, is there a structure that you see that makes a really powerful talk?
I really think what it is when someone speaks from their heart and they're not up there to self-promote. They're not up there for different intentions. They're there really, truly to share from their experience and their idea that's going to help others live a better life, be inspired. I think those are the talks that really resonate with people.
So that's maybe being raw, right? Like really sharing, going deep.
Very extremely vulnerable. There was a point in my talk where I started to cry because it was very personal to me. My sister died, and sharing a lot of her story brought up a lot for me, and grief. And so, we're vulnerable, and that's okay to share, and that's what connects with people. I told myself I would, try not to cry, but if I did, I did. And that's just part of, the journey for me. But yeah, I mean, I think it really is what makes a great TED or TEDx talk is you can tell people that are just really speaking from their heart and they just want to help and support others and, share something that changed their life or can help others live better lives and create that human impact.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And we see that in books too. I mean, the way you connect with we call it your ideal customer avatar, but the way you connect with your reader is by sharing, going where you don't want to go, right? Going where, oh, that sounds too personal, or oh, that sounds, but that's exactly how you connect with your reader. So
yeah, the more vulnerable you get, the more you're going to connect deeply with people. And Chris Anderson, who's in charge of TED right now, he kind of runs the whole thing. He wrote a book called TED Talks, and in there he talks a lot about that. How being vulnerable and sharing your experiences can, is what really connects with people.
Yeah, wow, so powerful. I'm interested in hear some of your favorite TED Talks. I know I have mine. I'd love to hear from the audience too. What are some of your favorite TED Talks?
Yeah, like well, I love Brene Brown's, but hers is like, a very popular one. The one that I really liked is by Elizabeth Gilbert. You guys know her. She wrote the book Eat, Pray, Love.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's called Your Elusive Creative Genius. And I like her talk because she talks about how, it's not just Picasso's and like certain people that are these creative people. Like we're all creative people. We all are. We all have it in us. It's not just like these really big names of these creative people that are so special, or have this rare talent. Like we really, truly all have that. And I think it's so true. I like hers. There's one I can't remember. It was a kid that did one that I really liked. He started a like nonprofit to help homeless and feed homeless people. And, you know, some of these talks that these kids have done are amazing. So if you look at like TEDx Youth, and I think it's like 7th graders to 12th graders who can speak. But there's a lot of TEDx Youth events that are in different cities where these kids can talk too.
Wow.
My favorite talk that I remember, I was making sure I got the name right, was Tim Urban's Inside the Mind of a Master Procrastinator. It was so on point with me being a master procrastinator, but he illustrates it really funny. It was a really entertaining talk.
Yeah.
I just realized he has 44 million views on YouTube for that.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Mine is, I think my first introduction to TED was it Ken Anderson, Schools Kill Creativity? What's my dog is?
Mm-hmm.
That was one of my favorites. But I also love like the Rives 4 a.m., where it's kind of more of a comedy that talks about like 4 a.m. and how it's in media everywhere, and he connects all these dots. But that's not as impactful one, just a funny one. Well, cool.
Yeah, and there's, that's a common question that's actually asked on applications is, what's your favorite TED Talk? So we usually, suggest that they pick something that's not so popular, not like the top 5 or top 10, like pick one that's like a little bit, maybe doesn't have as many views or is around a topic that you really like, and share that one with them.
Yeah, that's cool. So know your favorite unique TED Talk.
Yeah, your talk, and even like some cities, like I know San Diego has one. They have TEDx salons, and TEDx salons are where people just come together to watch different talks and discuss them. So if you're really wanting to get into the TEDx platform, get involved in the community, see what's in your area, see if you can volunteer. Some events will ask, have you ever been to a TEDx event or a TED event? So, if you show that you're involved in it, it also could help as well.
Oh,
and
cool.
Where do people go if they want to find these local events? I know you said that city by city. Is there a directory?
Yeah. So if you go to TED.com, you're going to see TEDx events and TED events, and you can go through it and you can put in a filter. So you can put in a filter for California or different areas. Like you can see all the ones globally where the TEDx events are. But if you go to like San Diego, you can see like all the ones that are in San Diego. And a lot of them will have websites and some of them don't, but they will share who the coordinator is. And then you can reach out to the coordinator through social media, or if there's a email there, you can reach out to them and just ask them like, about the event, if you can volunteer. A lot of times they need volunteers for different things, and, just get involved in the community.
That's great insight. Any kind of parting words or last final things that we might not touch on that our listeners can get some value from?
I would just say, if you are looking to make a big impact in this world, the TEDx stage is like, it's there. That's it. I mean, it's a global brand. It's been around for quite a long time. It's, a prestigious stage. It can change your life. Like some people have had their lives changed completely by doing that one TEDx talk or that one talk that really, can make a big global impact and human impact. And so, and don't let it, intimidate you because it is a big global brand. You don't have any experience. Again, we've worked with clients who have 0 speaking experience, and some of them have been some of the best talks. And you don't have to have like, people think, oh, it's TED or TEDx. You have to have like this big idea. It could be a very simple how-to. So it doesn't have to be like, something very elaborate. It could be something that you've just been doing that you found have been really helpful to you that you want to share with others.
Mm-hmm. And I know working with you, I mean, we've talked already, working with you is fairly affordable too. So I would say that if you guys are interested, it's Rachelle is accessible and definitely doable, right? For most people that really want it. So I don't know if you share pricing now or what, but definitely reach out to her directly. Darby, do you want to put her website link?
Yeah, I'll share it again.
For everyone.
Yeah, you can contact us. And again, we can have a clarity call to see if TED is a good fit for you. Because it isn't maybe for everybody, but having been through it myself, I think everybody should do it only because it's such an incredible experience. And, it's a very different stage. It's very focused on, again, that idea, but it is, it's just I don't know. I'm not affiliated with TED in any way, but I support their mission and their cause. And, we've seen TED and TEDx talks that have really inspired and changed things for people. So I love what they do.
It's amazing. It's amazing. Well, any final questions from anyone in the audience?
We did have a comment earlier for you, Rachelle.
Oh. Okay. The Fretboard Journal. Oh, wow. That's really interesting. Thank you.
Yeah. There we go. Okay.
Just anyone out there have like a key takeaway that they learned, like an insight that you got from tuning in today live with us? Thank you everyone who did show up, dropped your comments. It's great to have you here, and everyone watching the replay. Thank you as well. I'd love to hear kind of what insights you've gotten from Rachelle, and if anyone here is going to go pursue a TED Talk, love to hear about your idea inside of either Jarvis Underground or obviously reach out to Rachelle. RachelleBabler.com.
Cool. Looks like we got a shy crowd today. But Rachelle, thank you so much. Oh, here we go. Makes me less nervous because I feel it's more about my desire to share than it is promo.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yep. If you are going to speak from your heart, to just, again, help others think differently about something, take action. Like me, my whole thing was sharing my sister's story so that people would get screened, because colon cancer is one of the most preventable, treatable cancers out there when it's caught early. When it's caught late, it's a problem. And my sister's was caught stage 4, and it was just, she fought it for 2.5 years before she passed away. So I had a mission to share so that I could impact others to wake up and get screened.
Wow. That's amazing. And Dr. Shania said he got here late, but looking into whether it's a fit for him or a fit for them. So the best way, Rachelle, is just to get in touch with you directly, and that call is free to anyone who's a good fit.
Yep.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much. You guys, let us know in the comments. Give us a like, give us a subscribe, and we will be seeing you. We're doing these now kind of weekly. So next week is another really great talk. But Rachelle, thank you so much for coming on and sharing. I know I had so many questions, and I knew absolutely nothing about the TED stages. So it was really insightful.
Good. I'm glad. And thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
All right.
All righty. We'll see you guys.
See y'all.